Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Barbara Hedrick. I'll be moderating tonight for the League of Women Voters Voter Forum involving the mayoral candidates and city commission candidates for the special election in Fargo. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, volunteer-run organization aimed at enhancing our democracy through participation and advocacy. We are open to all adult U.S. citizens and hope many of you will decide that you like us so much after tonight, you join us. I thank the City of Fargo for the use of the Commission Chamber, for the staff, for the help that they offer us, to all of our league volunteers who are here tonight, and to our audience members who will be writing questions for our candidates. And of course, we thank our candidates for participating in our democracy tonight. It really does require people willing to put themselves up before the rest of us, which in my opinion, is a quite brave thing to do. Our format is our usual format of opening statements, questions, and closing statements. We will begin with 3-minute opening statements, beginning with Brad Wimmer.
Thank you. Interesting format tonight, so I'm glad. We've never been on with everybody, so I appreciate that. I'm not new to the community. I've been here for all my life, and again, grew up in Fargo, went to school in Fargo, attended first NDSU and then graduated at Minnesota State University Moorhead. And that was back many, many years ago. So got into a myriad of activities as our son grew up in Fargo, and a lot of those involved softball and soccer, and it seemed to be things that he was involved in that we got involved in. One thing led to another. The involvement in soccer led us to get involved in that and run for the park board. And again, that was roughly 15 years ago, I'm sorry, about 17 years ago, 18 years ago, and got on the park board, and one term, then 2 term, and really thoroughly enjoyed that. While on the park board, the Pepsi Soccer Complex is probably one of our bigger achievements. Myself and a couple of other people headed that and spearheaded it. Got private funding together, worked with the park board, and you've got one of the region's best soccer complexes up on the north side. From there, just got into a myriad of activities, Kiwanis, downtown, West Acres, North Dakota Jewelers Association, and then after park board, jumped onto the city commission and ran for that twice. Have enjoyed that thoroughly. The city commission has been a very, very good learning experience. From there, got onto the North Dakota League of Cities. Became its president. One of the things that I think I'm very good at is transitioning, and we've done that at our workplace. I've positioned myself to really become a full-time mayor, to devote my entire time to the role of mayor. Fargo's 115,000 people, and that's what we need at the moment. Work, I've transitioned that. I've helped transition to a new person at the North Dakota League of Cities. I was president when we transitioned that role. The previous person was there for 17 years, not unlike what's happening with our city administrator. That role could be stayed within the system with the assistant, Bruce Grubb, but I believe it needs to go to a larger opening and be brought out regionally and see what we can find for that role along with the new police chief. We're going to work well with the departments, again, well connected with the city of Fargo, and also with the region, with West Fargo, Moorhead in the area. And my role is to connect the dots, to be that person that works with the new commissioner that's going to come on board, and also with the 3 commissioners that are sitting now, and bring everybody together and provide a vision for Fargo and lead Fargo to the future to become one of the great cities in the upper Midwest. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Mahoney.
Hi, my name's Tim Mahoney. You know me from different issues, but I'll start at the beginning somewhat like Brad is. I went to undergraduate at Notre Dame. I finished my medical school, University of North Dakota and Tufts University. Did a residency at Hennepin County in Minneapolis, learned surgical technique, learned what happened in surgery, and then have worked here for 40 years as a doctor. Got involved with city government 10 years ago. Delightful time, ran for commission, and began to find out all the wonderful things going on in the city. I had the honor of serving as deputy mayor for Denny Wallaker, and he and I worked together on a variety of things. Most of you saw us in the crisis of 2009, and I think that was one of Fargo's finest moments in which we all stood together and held off a crisis. During the time after that, Denny and I worked closely on a variety of different city policies and city activities and continue to have things working fairly well for the city. When Denny died in December, took over the duties as mayor and have been working on it ever since. We had the basement exemption with FEMA. We got that for the city. We worked hard on that with our engineering team. Been working with the legislative body, probably one of the smoothest relationships we've had in a long time. We had the 2020 bill, which basically extends our diversion, and Senate went 46-0 in favor of it. We just got a House vote on it of 90 to 3. So what's happening is people like Fargo. Fargo's doing well. When the western part of the state got into trouble and the oil prices went down, people got concerned. What's going to happen in Fargo? What's going to happen in the state? I think people began to realize that for the state to do well, Fargo and all the areas around Fargo have to do well. Governor was talking the other day of how many jobs are available throughout the state. So there's 19,000 jobs available throughout the state. 14,000 are in Cass County. So we've got a lot of stuff going on in the area and what's going on with the community. I do have a good relationship with my commissioners. I do have good relationships with the other mayors. We get together all the time and talk about different issues. We've already breached some of the areas with West Fargo, talking about water, seeing if we can help them out, give them some good water. As you know, Fargo has the #1 water in the state of North Dakota. We have our challenges as a city. We're turning into an urban center. With that, we're going to have different things that happen to our community. Our police chief just recently talked about gang activity and what we're going to do about it. And we'll bring forth a task force that will deal with it. As we continue to grow, we'll have many challenges. I've been honored to be your mayor and would ask that you elect me your mayor and look forward to this election. Thank you.
Thank you. And now starting our commission candidates with John Strand.
Hi, I'm John Strand, and I'm really pleased to be here and to be part of this process. It's truly an honor to be a public servant and to be connected to the people and to go to bat for the people. And that's what I take real pride in, is taking care of ordinary people and being their voice at the table whenever that's appropriate. Many of you may know me through my school board experience. In my second term, I've been elected twice to the Fargo School Board. And in that capacity, one of my favorite challenges I faced was a couple years ago chairing the long-range facilities planning process. If folks remember the discussions about neighborhood schools and whether we'd save them or not, that was me at the chair of that effort for over a year. We engaged the public, we went to the people, we listened to the people, and in the end we saved every school, every neighborhood school, and all ended up on the same page. And then now, as I go into this opportunity of being a commissioner, I hope that's something I will translate to my experiences and to my duties, is bringing the notion and the skill set of planning and of envisioning and setting a roadmap going forward so that we all get on the same page and we all have people involved in that process and we all own it, because it's the people's will that we're serving if we happen to be public officials in that capacity. Another thought about being on the school board is I'm accustomed to big budgets. The city commission budget, for example, their general fund is $90 million. The Fargo School Board's general fund is $141 million. That's the kind of budget I'm used to working with. And I have a thing for numbers. I almost have a photographic memory for numbers on budgets. It drives people crazy at times, but that's something I take real pride in, is knowing the budget, working the budget, and squeezing every single inch you can get out of every dollar of the people's hard-earned money. I'm a fiscal tightwad, I tell people, so I get as much mileage as I can, and I'm a social liberal. I have a lifelong experience of advocating for human rights, and that's something that won't change, and frankly, I think that reflects the population we're in. Lastly, I will suggest that if there's anybody here who will go to bat for your neighborhoods, it'll be me. If there's anybody here who understands what's at risk in some of your neighborhoods, that'll be me. If there's anybody here who will say, yes, we're going to have growth, but we have to take care of what we've got, that will be me. And I will go to every level I can to put focus on our neighborhoods and protect them and honor the past while still growing forward.
Thank you. Mara Brust?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to all of you for being here today. Fargo is currently thriving and growing, but for that momentum to continue into the future, we need to build a community that will retain and attract talent, a community that people want to live in, a community that is welcoming to everybody. Given there are around 8,000 available jobs in the area right now, addressing the workforce shortage is going to be critical to our continued success. Millennials currently make up the largest percentage of the workforce, so as a young professional who moved away for law school only to return home to begin my practice, I will bring a unique perspective to the City Commission as to what attracts young, talented workers to our city. We must also build a community that businesses want to invest in, encouraging new business opportunities and the expansion of current ones. We must embrace and nurture our thriving entrepreneurial community. We also have to make sure that our growth is sustainable by encouraging infill, strong neighborhoods, the revitalization of current structures, as well as smart, responsible expansion. As we grow, many Fargo residents will continue to value the single-family home on the large lot. However, we should not ignore the importance of both walkability and mixed-use neighborhoods to not only the young, talented workers we're trying to attract, but also to baby boomers who want to live close to work and amenities as they become empty nesters and retirees. Permanent flood protection is critical for our continued success. The protection offered by the diversion will provide the stability that businesses need to plan for the future and the peace of mind that potential residents need before they'll invest in a home here. We must implement flood protection as soon as possible to protect our homeowners from skyrocketing flood insurance rates. I am eager to put in the time and the effort to get results for Fargo. I believe that this is a pivotal moment, and I want us to help reach our full potential. And I believe that with my creativity, intelligence, and work ethic, I can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Cole Carley?
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Cole Carley. I grew up around here. Most recently, I spent almost 23 years at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So during that period of time, I was kind of the voice of our metropolitan area to the nation and the world to try to bring visitors here. Now I'd like to be your voice on the Fargo City Commission, a positive voice for good government here in Fargo. A little over 2,000 years ago, in a city in Greece, an ancient philosopher wrote, "Our city is the way it is because our citizens are the way they are." And over 2,000 years later, it's still true. Cities are not great because of infrastructure or city government. Those are vital. But cities are great because of the citizens and the ideas that they have. Fargo is great because of the citizens and the ideas that they've had over the years. Ideas like the Fargo Dome, the Red Hawks Stadium. I'll include my former employer, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. All of those needed the participation of Fargo city government in order to exist. But all of those were ideas that came from the citizens. I fundamentally believe that the city is on the right track, and I'd like to help. Another wise man, this time it was Albert Einstein, said that at some point the ideal of work or success must be replaced by the ideal of service. That's the point I'm at in my life. I don't have to worry about success or work right now. I've retired a couple of years ago, and my ideal is service. I want to be of service to the city of Fargo and its citizens. I want to be of service to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Schaefer?
My name is Brad Schaefer. I'm a registered civil engineer in North Dakota and Minnesota. I'm currently a sales manager for True North Steel here in Fargo. I've been living in the valley for 14 years and have adopted Fargo as my home. I moved here and just fell in love with the people. Hard-working, God-fearing people here and just very giving people. And I've enjoyed living here. I've enjoyed raising my family here. You've got 8 people up here, and in about a week and a half, 2 of them are going to be sitting up here every other Monday, and they're going to be voting on things that honestly you guys will never know about. You'll never hear about. Recently, the City Hall was bid and came in over budget. The City Commission could have voted to go ahead with that project, and wisely so, they voted to rebid that project. That in and of itself saved enough money to build the new fire hall. And things like this happen every other Monday when you guys are out taking kids to soccer practice or your kids to music lessons. So you need someone up here that you're going to trust. We talk a lot about transparency and honesty in government. You guys can ask questions of us, examine us, because you're going to want to have people up here that are doing what you want to do when you're out doing what you're supposed to do, working your jobs or whatever else. Recently, just this past week, there was a 3-to-1 vote with this commission, and there was a vote for a tax, and there was one vote that voted against that. Well, I think we need more people on this council that will, this commission rather, that would vote no, that would have the experiences, the wisdom and discernment, and the ability to say no, and not go along with things that are just feel-good things to do, and that we want to just go forward with. I believe that a lot has been talked about saving money and making taxes to where they're more affordable to live in Fargo, so Fargo can grow. And I would propose that every 2 weeks, when bills are approved here through a consent agenda that sometimes is 150 or 200 pages long, that I would have the time to take out things, to discuss things, to ask questions of things, and have the ability to say no, ask for more things to be presented with clarity where people can understand them, and have a voice up here that is willing to say no. I love this process. You guys get to know us, know who we are, and I appreciate that. It's been a fun experience to get involved in this process. And again, thank you guys for putting this on tonight, and thank you guys for coming out. And get out and vote April 28th. More than anything else, get out and vote. Thank you.
Yep, somebody got the bell. Our timer's phone will go off if you try to hit 3 minutes, or 2 minutes when we come. Tony Gehrig, you got a mic now, go ahead.
My name is Tony Gehrig, the responsible choice for Fargo City Commissioner. I'm a lifelong resident of the area. I graduated from Shanley High School, then NDSU, and I've been serving the North Dakota Air National Guard for 13 years, currently as a pilot with the 119th Wing. My wife, Rachel, also attended NDSU, and then she went to UND Law, and she's a lawyer in the community here. My son, Jackson, is 2 years old, and he's my biggest supporter. There's 8 candidates up here today, and many of you, if you're undecided, you want to know what the differences are between us. So I'm going to try my best to lay those out as plainly as I possibly can. Number one, I'm the only candidate talking in terms of needs versus wants. There are many needs in the city of Fargo, which I think should always go first. The fire hall has been spoken to. We need expanded water filtration if we're going to sell water to West Fargo. We need more police officers. Last year they asked for 5, they only received 2. The landfill will be full within the next 5 or so years. And of course, we need flood protection. I believe that if we focus on the needs and resist the urge to raise taxes and spend on the wants, that we can actually have lower taxes. I'm the only candidate who's asking or proposing lower taxes, specifically a 20% cut in your property taxes for the city of Fargo. That'll put hundreds of dollars back in your pocket that you'll likely spend within the community, and that's what generates a growing economy. And I hope we can talk about that more as the day goes on. Not only am I the only candidate who wants to cut your taxes, I'm the only candidate who does not want to raise your taxes. Every other candidate up here is in support of the city-owned convention center. That's going to be about a $60 million project. It's going to require higher taxes to get those $60 million. It will never operate within the black. It's never expected to. And it will compete directly with neighbors who offer similar services. I was the first candidate to bring to the forefront the issue of City Hall and its budget. A year and a half ago, in the summer of 2013, I wrote op-eds and I went on the radio and I predicted that this would be a $25 million project. And that was at the time when everyone else was saying 12. And not only was I correct on that, but I underestimated by $5.4 million. Not only is this a very expensive project and over budget, it also is a terrible use of our space downtown. It could be better used by the private sector. I'm a candidate who is not afraid to be the lone voice on these issues and bring them to the people. I will encourage economic development through lower, sustainable, and predictable taxes. I will refocus the commission on the needs versus the wants, and I will refocus the commission on completing our inner city flood protection. And I hope everyone gets out and votes early, the 20th and the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, all day. You can get in there and vote, and it should be a low turnout. So your vote matters more so this year than in most years. And if you don't get out then, April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Wagner.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on, and for all of you that taking time out of your schedule to be here this afternoon. I've been a resident of Fargo for over 24 years. I come from rural Minnesota, right in the metro area, a small farming community. Ulen, Minnesota is where I'm originally from. So 40 of my 45 years have been spent in and around the metro. My family lived in Arizona for 5 years, and we moved back in the late 80s, and I started my business. I own a service company, Wagner Window Cleaning. I've been in business, it'll be 26 years this year. I started that company to put myself through college, and so I know hard work. I still own that company today. Every day I get out and I work, and during the time that I was building my business, after graduating college, I ran for the Cass County Commission, and I was proud to be your county commissioner for 12 years. And during that time as a county commissioner, I worked on a lot of major issues facing our area. I served 3 years on the Diversion Authority Board of Directors. That's a critical issue that's important to me to finish that major flood control project. I chaired the building committee that built the west addition to the Cass County Courthouse. And when we talk about City Hall, I've been through successful infrastructure projects. Also, I was on the county commission when we built the new jail, both projects that came in on budget. As we move forward, areas of public safety I think are critically important. Having set law enforcement budgets, surface transportation budgets for 12 years, I understand these issues and how important they are. Really, the growth of Fargo is the growth of Cass County. During my time as a commissioner, we had 25,500 new residents move into our area. And so I understand what it means to meet the services to our citizens. I also had the opportunity, and I think because it is a legislative session, our relationship with Bismarck and the rest of the state is critically important. And I had the honor and privilege of being the former president of the North Dakota County Commissioners Association, where I also chaired their legislative committee and worked on a lot of major issues jointly with the League of Cities advancing local government. So there's a lot of choices in this election, and I think that's great for the voters that you have a number of people to pick from. But at the end of the day, I think there are major issues. This isn't a quiet time in our city's history, and I think experience in leadership on these big issues is important to the next commissioner for the city of Fargo. So thank you for the time, for coming out today, and I would appreciate your vote on April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start now with questions with Tim Mahoney, and again, 2 minutes to answer these questions. A couple of people ask about affordable housing. So what do you think the city should do to enhance affordable housing in Fargo, particularly with the increasing number of homeless people?
Well, there's 2 parts to that question. I'm glad you asked it, but we have to look at affordable housing for young people coming into the community as well as older people coming in to retire to the community. So there's 2 different needs and wants in that area. The planning department's going to do a study this spring basically on the housing market, or what's going on in housing. We did it back in 2005. We found a variety of things at that time. And the hope is by doing the housing study is to find out what the barriers are, what's stopping from people getting into housings. We have the housing authority that oftentimes works on people who are homeless to get them into housing, because what happens in those particular areas, they sometimes don't meet the credit or they don't meet some of the requirements to get into the rental areas and aren't able to get into an area. We found in the homeless population, we spend almost $30,000 on somebody who's homeless, that if they're in a home, it's $20,000 a year in social services. So it's fairly important to get people into their homes or get into some type of housing arrangement which really enhances it. We just talked to the realtors, Brad and I, and we've also talked to the Home Builders Association. And part of the concerns we see out there is specials. What are we going to do about specials? What are we going to do about average price in a house in Fargo right now is $180,000. Well, for a starter home, how much do you want to spend on a starter home? And it's hard for a young family to come up with a down payment and get into that. So I think it's a critical thing that we look at affordable housing. Part of that is rejuvenizing our neighborhoods. There's some older stock, maybe we can work at that. City of Fargo has rejuvenated 5,000 properties over the last 10 years. We have at least 6 to 8 programs that will help people out, tax breaks. There's areas we help people pay off their specials. We help people that are income bound where they're on a fixed income. So we have a variety of programs in which we can help people out in that area. And I think we're going to have to strive to continue to study it, see what we can do for it, and see how the City of Fargo can help out.
Thank you. John Strand?
The issue of affordable housing is pretty complex, but it's also something we can break down and get our arms around one block at a time, one home at a time. So looking at Fargo, we have neighborhoods in Fargo, for example, that are going into disrepair and actually falling into blighted conditions. The city and people can partner to take and spruce up, fix up, reinvest in, revitalize some of these older neighborhoods. If there are properties that are in such disrepair that we demolish, then we partner with folks that want to own a home. And we find ways to get them to have their home or get their home developed on lots that otherwise were falling into utter disrepair. We have opportunities, if we are creative about it, to help shift people from rentals to ownership. And there's lots of examples around that we can benchmark and work around as models, where we take and create essentially homeowner associations, where people have opportunity to get in and be partners, and whether it's townhouses or condos, they have shared communal ownership and community ownership, but in the same time they own their own homes. We have a need for incentives for folks to go into their homes, especially in the north side neighborhoods, where we want especially families with kids to move to populate our schools. Regarding the homeless, you know, we have to have a lot more heart sometimes than we do, and be really willing and open to know what the circumstances of others are. You know, the saying, "But for the grace of God, there go I." And sometimes we're a little closed-minded about taking care of folks who've fallen into troubled times. But that said, there are also examples of small homes, more portable homes, mobile homes, little ones on wheels, little like fishing house type homes that we can be creative with and model other cities what they've done right here in Fargo.
Thank you. Mara Brust?
It's vital that we ensure that there are affordable options for housing throughout the city. We need to continue to support creative options to help get people into homes by working with the federal government, the state government, and local nonprofits that are addressing these initiatives. For example, nonprofits that will vouch for a citizen, so if they can't get the first month's rent and that security deposit, they'll help them get into homes. Support all of those types of initiatives and also support our homeless shelters. We also need to make sure that special assessments and property taxes aren't prohibitive to home ownership by supporting state initiatives and working with our state legislators, as well as looking for ways to address those issues inside of Fargo. And finally, we need to make sure that flood insurance rates aren't prohibitive for home ownership. So we need to make sure that we get permanent flood protection in place as soon as possible.
Thank you. Cole Carley?
Well, affordable housing is such a relative term. It's such an important issue, but I think, you know, you can go on forever trying to make sure that there's enough affordable housing out there, and it is an important issue. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we do have as many programs as we have that will help people get into homes, especially the first-time home buyers or the first-time homeowners, and I think we need to encourage more of those if we can. There's the homeless. We have such a large population of the state's homeless right here, and I really like the fact that we have people with such giving hearts and so many organizations that have opened their hearts to and have been created to help the homeless here. But it's still not enough. We're still going to have to work hard. We're still going to have to give of ourselves. We're still going to have to open our checkbooks and help those organizations to really help the homeless, of which we have such a large proportion of our state's people without homes. So It's an ongoing situation. I think our city's got a responsibility to do what it can and to keep doing it.
Thank you. Bradford Schaefer.
It's a complex issue, affordable housing, and you know, you start with the least of these, and I know quite a bit about the homeless population. I've volunteered at the New Life Shelter here for 7 years. I've been involved in some housing issues with them as well, and they this is a very giving community, and there's a lot of things that are given back that people never hear of. There's some research going into people living there that don't have a driver's license, don't have a Social Security number, cannot start to get social services. Used to be a warehouse over there when Dan Danielson was there. Now that Rob Sewers is there, they're moving people into the community. Education is key when you start there. You get them acclimated in the community. I'm on the board of my father's house here, who is involved in accountability housing for returning citizens, to where they're involved in renovating the homes that they're going to live in. They live in. They're held accountable. There's certain things that they have to do. It's a faith-based program that gets zero government money, and I think the churches in the community are doing a pretty good job at that level. Where we can take tax dollars and infuse that into that, I think a lot of times the local governments need to get out of the way and maybe foster the churches and the groups that are doing that kind of work. I believe that as we do get into the affordable housing, I think is what the question was directed at. Some of the infill areas that we have in the city, we need to look at those first. Downtown, there's talk about going vertical with housing. As you go south, you've got a lot of infrastructure needs to meet as you push water and sewer out south of Davies into that area that is going to be a cost issue. So it's a very complex issue.
Thank you. Tony Gehrig.
As I said in my opening, I want to keep taxes low, predictable, and sustainable. There's one thing this commission can do tomorrow to make your house more affordable, and that is to cut your property taxes by 20%. I'm the only candidate who's proposing that. And the math works. If you cut, last year our general fund budget was $85 million. This year it was $90 million. If you cut 20% from property taxes, the general fund budget would still go up. It would be $86 million. If we can't afford to cut that amount from the general fund budget, then we're doing things wrong. The general fund budget has grown by 13% in 2 years. If we can't cut 4% out of that to make your home more affordable, then we're doing something wrong. This puts hundreds of dollars for the average person back in your pocket. And when you do that, the likelihood is that person will turn around and spend money in the community, whether that's fixing up their home, whether that's going out to a nice restaurant. That's how you drive the economy. That's how you improve the economy. As far as the homeless population, people wonder why I was in opposition of the ART task force. One of the biggest reasons is that pot of money that comes from, if it was $90,000, the pot of money that comes from also goes to help homeless veterans in our community. Homeless veterans in our community, out of that pot of money, get $15,000. So we're paying $90,000 for art. We're paying $15,000 for homeless veterans. Now, this strikes me a little bit close to home. I think our priorities are wrong. I think we need to re-examine and not just do the feel-good things, but look where that money is coming from. That's why I talk about needs versus wants. It might feel good to do some of these wants, but the needs are out there to include homeless people, to include affordable housing. And there are simple things this commission can do if we're more responsible with our dollars to make these things happen.
Thank you. Scott Wagner.
Thank you. Well, I think first, as we grow as a community, we're going to see things that are going to be heightened in terms of areas that are going to need to be addressed. I think looking at some of the best practices of other communities that have tackled this is something. Also, those people that work with those people that are, more vulnerable in our community or are living on marginal incomes, that they're engaged in this process. And it's multifaceted. I mean, it's not just the current, it's people that could they potentially not have a home. I support the homestead tax credits for our seniors and veterans. Those are important programs to help keep people in their homes. Also, when I was a county commissioner, I made sure that when the funding to rape and abuse crisis in YWCA was in jeopardy, that we kept that money in our budget. It's sponsorship dollars when I served on the social services board, because people that are coming out of bad situations that may not have the resources they need a place to go in that transitional period. Also, I think another area is the new families that want to move into our community. I think one of the issues, and it's flood control. When we look at the remapping of the floodplain and the requirements for flood-proofing homes, that adds expense to homes. And I believe the Home Builders Association indicated that is about a $25,000 add-on cost for the new requirements, and that becomes cost prohibitive. So I think, I'm a fan of all of our communities, including people wanting to move in Moorhead and want to move to West Fargo, but Fargo needs to be in the mix, and I think long-term flood control and getting certified flood protection, that's going to be critical to new families moving in our community and be able to afford houses.
Thank you. Brad Winter.
Well, one, this quickly rubber stamps to me after waiting for 7 people to talk why Fargo's system is good with 5 commissioners. And it's interesting. How would you function? Moorhead functions with 8 or 9. And I think that's why Fargo works good. So I'm in favor of a 5-person commission. That wasn't the question. Affordable housing and homeless, I think, are 2 different issues. And again, one of my first comment would be that the Gladys Ray Center is not an answer to affordable housing. And we've got people living in the Gladys Ray Center. And that was meant to be a temporary place for people to go for a night or 2 or 3. And so that focus has changed. With the high rise, with Park East, with a couple of our trailer parks possibly being talked about moving or changing, where are those people going to go? I mean, that is our affordable housing right now, and where are those people going to go? So my answer to that in my vision is to take those people, and we're talking 400, 500, 600 people, so there's a lot of people involved, and to try to place them around the community in different areas. So the high rise is probably too centralized and too many people right there. So to work with neighborhoods, developers, the downtown area, and placement of those folks, not an easy task. When we tried to enhance the low-income housing across from Northport, we caught heck from the entire neighborhood. Very divisive meeting after meeting after meeting. So putting these into the neighborhoods is not going to be easy, but that's what I like to do. And we will try to find out where 8 to 12 of these areas are. We will try to make smaller junctions of low-income housing and move them around the community.
Thank you. For the next question, I think this probably flows rather naturally, and then we'll start with John Strand. Do you think Fargo has adequate public transportation options? How could it be improved and how? What could be improved and how, sorry.
When I lived in upstate New York for about 6.5 years of my life, and once before that in Washington, D.C., when I was fresh out of college and I had a 90-day appointment there, or internship, I lived and breathed on public transit. And I saw some interesting things when you use public transit as a consumer. Things I noted that were interesting was they went late at night, and they went on Sundays. And it could take you almost anywhere you want. That's really not the case here in Fargo, especially for folks in need, like our New American community. I've been part of an effort lately to help our New Americans get something as simple as bus passes to get to the English language learning classes. And we've come up with 300 passes for the interim, but we're shooting for 200 monthly passes per semester, so folks can use the public transit to get to education. But there's still these needs, the parts of town they can't get to at all. And as we sprawl and grow, it stretches our services even further. So that's something that needs to be on our radar as far as public transit. And I'm going to go out a little bit to an edge here. One of the things that was nice about, for example, Rochester, New York, when I lived there, was if you went downtown to eat and drink, you could ride the bus and not have to worry about driving home, and not have to worry about being impaired when you're driving. And you didn't put others or yourselves at risk. There's something valuable about that to consider. So public transit's just a huge need. We have great public transit, especially for the students to and from downtown, and especially to and from West Acres. But there are gaps, and there are opportunities, and some of those opportunities, even like the trolley system over to Moorhead, There's some innovative, creative ideas there that are part of the public transit picture. I look forward to being creative and finding out more what the people need.
Thank you, Mara Brust.
Thank you. I think Fargo is really hungry for better alternative transportation right now. When we look at the initiatives that have been put forward so far, the bike share program, the launch of that, people were so excited, and we have already just crushed all of the records that have been made in that in other cities. People are using it, people are loving it. And when we look at the bus from NDSU to downtown, also that's taken off. So I think traditionally there's been some skepticism about public transportation in Fargo, but I think the tides are shifting, and part of that is that millennial generation. That's something that they look for in choosing a city where they're going to come to work. They want to be able to take low-cost transit throughout the city. So we need to make sure that that's thriving in Fargo and that those options are available to them. We also need to make sure that the low-cost transit is available for lower-income people so that it's not just going from NDSU to downtown, but also going to the places where people work and people need to get to. We also need to make sure that our city is walkable by encouraging mixed-use neighborhoods where people can live close enough to work and services where they don't need to depend on a car to get there. So we need to make sure that we have mixed-use neighborhoods with affordable housing options.
Thank you, Cole Carley.
I think part of this is evolutionary. I remember when bus service in Fargo was really pitiful many years ago, and it's gotten a lot better, but it can get better yet. It's been encouraging to see the growth in bus service here in Fargo, and it needs some more work, frankly. And I think that as they increase the kinds of buses that have increased kinds of mileage and decreased kinds of operating expenses, that the city will be able to afford more of those, which means more routes. I also think that that riding the bus is going to be a function more of the new Americans and of the younger people, because the people about my age are still pretty much all about cars. We still pretty much like driving. So they're going to have to wait for a lot of us to die off, and the millennials to grow up a little bit to see some of that improve. Unfortunately, I was thrilled to see the bike share program happen. My legs are a little long for it, actually. I'm not going to be able to use it, but about 500 rides a day, several thousand just in the few weeks that it started. It was just wonderful to see that, and I hope that it expands because it's something that we could really use here.
Thank you. Brad Schaefer.
I've lived in several large cities. I used to take a bus into downtown Denver every day for 45 minutes, and I calculated I think I spent 6 weeks a year on a bus, and that wasn't a good deal. Fargo has a unique bus system in where they serve, and I think that needs to be studied on where it could better serve. My company is providing 60% of the steel for the New Sanford Medical Center, and I believe that's a route that obviously is going to have to be looked at. And as you look at pockets around town, I think that study needs to take place on where to make better use of your bus system. What I have seen is similar to the problem we discussed before with the homeless, the people that are taking public transportation to the mall and different places like that. It kind of serves a different part of the community, and will that change over time as we have different pockets around the city where it grows, where we need that? I mean, you've got a school on the south end that's quite a haul from downtown. Could that be a route? It's currently not. So I believe it needs to be studied and looked at. Again, being fiscally conservative on how we spend our monies, on how we support this, but I think it needs to be looked at.
Thank you. Tony Gehrig.
Brad, you stole part of my answer there. I spoke to a group of Nepal immigrants. There's about 2,000 or so of them in our city, and they lamented about how in their neighborhoods they weren't getting proper service. So that's exactly what needs to happen. We need to identify where these shortfalls are at, because most of them, if not all of them, use the bus. They don't have cars and they don't have the funds for that. So studying where it can be more effective would help everybody. If more people are using it, that means more tax dollars to pay for it. Right now, our MAT system is heavily subsidized by the state, which is necessary. We don't make money off the MAT bus, obviously, but it is obviously something that we need in the city of Fargo because not everyone can afford a vehicle to get around. So I think we're on the right track. We're doing what we can with the dollars that we have. The buses are in good shape. Other ideas are coming out there, and I think that we're on the right track.
Thank you. Scott Wagner?
Thank you. Well, I think it serves a very important role in our community. The expansion, as many have mentioned, of NDSU, I think that's a great partnership. That's not only because it's serving more people, but there's a revenue source there with a partnership with NDSU. I had an opportunity to go through the facility with Jim Gilmore on 2 occasions, and you know, I think the city does a really good job, and there's a lot of demand and dollars. You know, actually, one of the biggest portions of their budget comes from you know, a federal grant. So I know that becomes challenging, but I think for the resources that they currently have, I think they're doing a really good job. And just beyond that, you know, as I move through the city departments, they probably don't get enough credit, I think, how good of the employees and departments are in this city and the work that they do for our citizens. I think if anybody takes the time to go through those, you'll see the work they're doing. And I know they're working on an enhancement and refining of those programs, but I think they're doing a good job for the people of Fargo and hopefully keep doing a better job.
Thank you. Brad Wimmer?
We do a good job in this area, and it does need tweaking constantly. So, you know, Julie Bommelman, and she's on leave now, Jim Gilmore, and the group that oversees the buses. Commissioner Williams does a wealth of things with the bus system. So it needs some work. We need to make sure that the bus goes by where you work, where you live, where you want to do your recreation, and new Americans, they're exactly right. Those people that don't have access to vehicles need that. It's an interesting system. I don't know how many, I challenge everybody here that if you haven't ridden one of our Fargo buses lately, jump on a bus. So I don't do it often. I just did it 3 weeks ago just to get back on. Commissioner Williams encouraged me to do that. And it's interesting. Those people that are on the bus and they're regulars, they know the route. They know exactly the time it's going to stop. They know if the guy takes a wrong turn on University and he should have gone to 2nd Avenue instead of 3rd Avenue. They know everything about that bus, and they rely on that bus. And it's an extremely important part of their lives. We're becoming much more bikeable and walkable, and I think that's going to be encouraged. So I think the downtown area, you're able to walk within a mile or bike within a mile and get to places. So that's why more people are coming downtown. They like that. And so I think we'll continue with that, continue working with the universities, with the schools, with the large employers that need buses to come. Walmart's another huge one. People love to go to Walmart, and that's where a lot of these people are going for groceries, for a lot of their needs every day. So they do a nice job to make certain these buses stop at the critical spots in town and again, try to leverage the dollars that they have and do a good job, but always trying to tweak and change things around.
Thank you. Tim Mahoney?
Boy, after we've had all this discussion, there's not much for me to say, is there, guys? Basically, we just had a meeting in the Transportation Committee the other day, and we're just talking about how the bus usage is going up. The bike usage took off like crazy. And to Carly's comment is we have to learn to use public transportation in some ways, because if we utilize it, it uses less cars downtown, less parking issues, less other issues. But part of what we're getting into is what's the demographic you're trying to satisfy? Is it the working poor that are trying to use the bus, or who gets to use the bus? We just spent $1.3 million on 2 buses. So buses are fairly expensive, and the commitment to a transit system is very, very, very much. In addition to that, the city is looking at Uber, trying to have Uber throughout the community as well to try to decrease or have different options for people to have transportation. We also have people who have special needs that we need to have transportation for as well, served by that. Metropolitan Council meets every month, and basically what that does, it's a makeup of Moorhead, Fargo, West Fargo, and the surrounding Minnesota, North Dakota communities. And in that, areas are identified that need help. So when you talk about different areas of young Americans or people that need transportation issues solved, that's where that's taken up. Every year we see new areas, new routes, new things that we have to do. I'd say we have a healthy transit system, but we're transitioning. We used to be a small community. We're turning into an urban community. We have to have bus routes so people can get to work and get back home from work. We have to have bus routes where people can get to their medical services, since that's a big part of our lives as well, and get back from those areas. I think we have a very healthy planning department, and we may bring out of our planning department the metro or the bus issues just because it's getting so big and getting so much part of our life. So we will look at that seriously, and I think we've got a great system that can only be improved.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Mara Brust, and I'm going to warn you all that I'm combining 3 different folks' question here, so you may want to take notes. This is, of course, about flood protection. The questions I'm seeing here are, do you think basically the diversion is the best option? Can you explain the climate models that are suggesting an aggressive need for flood control? And do you think the city should assist those in farm communities who will be disrupted by the diversion if you do support it? You ready? Ready?
Good luck, Mara.
Well, I think that the diversion will be the best option for providing the stability that the city needs to plan for the future so that businesses can continue to grow here, so new homeowners can purchase homes here without hesitation, and so that we don't have to keep having the drain on resources of fighting a flood year after year. Now, obviously, it's a complicated project. Funding can be slow, so we need to make sure that we're getting the levees built and all of those other protections in place that we can without the diversion in the interim. And in this process, we need to make sure that we're being fair as possible. So we need to consider what we can do for those people that have been negatively affected by the diversion.
I want to hear your answer on climate control.
No, it's climate models.
Oh, climate models.
If you want to dare to be a climatologist today, go ahead.
Deal with that.
Cole Carley.
Could you give me the second part of that again?
Oh, boy. That was the climate model question. That was, can you explain the climate models that suggest that this aggressive need for flood control? I just read.
I don't know.
Okay.
You can say I don't know. If you're a weatherman,
you got that right.
it's a 50-50 chance, so.
I'm emailing John Wheeler.
I am absolutely in support of the FM diversion as it now is designed and as it's now funded. It's unfortunate that the latest wrinkle with the contingency special assessment got a little complicated and a little difficult to explain, because when that happens, people start to get a little confused, and then people start getting a little suspicious. But I think it was a good idea. It's a little, like I said, it's a little hard to explain. But the way I understand it, it's going to save us money in the long run. And I trust city government. I don't trust a lot of government. I trust county government. I trust city government, because they haven't given me a reason not to so far. So I'll go with that. The diversion is absolutely necessary. We have to get out of the floodplain, and FEMA just announced they're going to redraw it again in another few years. We absolutely have to do this, because there are businesses and there are people that will always look askance at possibly moving here because of that. So the future of the Red River Valley depends on this city not going underwater. So I don't know how many more ways there are to say it. For me to say it anyway, yes, I'm in favor of it. The climate model, I don't know about assisting the farm communities. I think it'd be a nice thing to do. I know part of the model for the diversion is to is building a ring dike around Hickson, Baki, that area. But I also think that those the communities downstream from us are going to have to be protecting themselves, as we've had to protect ourselves for quite a while. And the Canadians, once they established the diversion up there, have ring dikes around a lot of the farms up there and around some of the communities, and I think that's a good example.
Thank you. Right under the bell. Brad Schaefer.
I did not plant this question, but as a civil engineer, I can talk about the climate models. There's nomographs, there's runoff hydrographs that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did, and they took there's a wet cycle and a dry cycle, and in order to analyze the diversion, they set a certain date. From that date forward, they used the data. I think it was sometime in the 60s. It was more of a wet cycle, and that's why the flood elevation went up. I've studied floodplain maps. I don't know who put that question out there, but I did not ask somebody to do that. But there you go, Cole. That's what a climate model is.
Man.
The diversion is a complex deal. Engineering-wise, I've looked at it. I was at a meeting today where one of the engineers talked about the ring dike around the Baki-Hickson area, and it's a very complex issue. I mentioned in my opening statement there was a vote of 3-1 here last week with this commission that voted for the city of Fargo to approve the assessment method that was set up. And I don't know if any of you guys were in any of these public hearings, but 2/3 of that vote was done by public bodies. The city of Fargo itself, the public could have voted 100% no. The assessment went forward. We've talked a lot about taxes increasing. My taxes increased $5,000 after that vote. And so I think we need to look at that. The displacement of the homes, we're doing that now in Fargo, and it's going to continue whether the diversion happens or not. I think there's another issue of the farmers south of here. There's 10 cemeteries that are going to be inundated. That I believe the Senate voted in favor of a bill, the House overruled that. So I think there's a lot of social stuff that needs to be looked at south of here. It's a very complex issue. I believe in flood protection for Fargo. It needs to happen. I think this commission is where the buck is going to stop as it goes forward, and need people to ask those questions.
Thank you. Tony Gehrig?
I'm not opposed to the diversion in theory, but we need to have an honest conversation about what it all entails. First of all, the $1.8 billion number is outdated. I spoke with Daryl Vanio this year, and I asked him if that number was outdated, and he basically said yes. And I asked him for a number, and he couldn't give it to me. So I myself think it'll be double that, and I can get that number because the inner city flood protection has quadrupled in price since it started. I'm waiting for Scott Wagner to agree with me, but I don't think that's going to happen.
With what? Would you repeat your comment?
The sales tax, in the 2012 sales tax, I think everyone remembers that debate. We were told that was a flood sales tax, a flood protection sales tax. In fact, Mike Williams was on the TV yesterday and said that the 2012 flood sales tax, it is not a flood sales tax. It is an infrastructure sales tax as stated by the Fargo webpage. So those dollars aren't being used properly towards flood protection the way we all were sold that they would be. And that matters because I believe that the Diversion Authority understands and knows that there is not going to be enough money in the sales taxes in order to cover the cost, and that's why they're assessing us. And mark my words, those dollars will be taken, and they will come back for more when it's not enough in the future. Federal funding is a huge question mark. I'll bet a steak dinner to anyone who wants it, that we're not going to get it. Not anytime soon anyway, not within my lifetime probably. The 2/3 vote that Brad talked about, huge foul. If you ask people for their opinion on a vote, and you override them, even though they voted dramatically in the negative, then why even ask? Just go and do what you're going to do. I've said for a long time, since this debate started, that inner city flood protection should be the #1 goal. You can see it, you can touch it. It can protect the city up to 40.8 feet, and it can be done in a short period of time. Because we put it off, it was originally going to cost $100 million. We've completed about half that project, and it's now going to cost $250 million to complete the rest of it. That's quadrupling the price tag, and it's because we put it off.
Thank you. Scott Wagner?
Well, I'll start with sometimes Tony gets a little confused on his numbers, but one thing that I want to say regarding this is that if you're going to say as a public policy holder that it's not going to get done as a stakeholder and elected official, it's probably going to be self-fulfilling. And this is probably not something most candidates should say, but you know, if you don't vote for me, and I'd love to have your vote for someone that supports this project because it's that important. It's personal to me. My time in the county commission, we dealt with 5 floods, and I watched people getting rescued off from their rooftops by helicopters by the U.S. Coast Guard back in '09. I never want to see that again. 75 people in the county lost their homes, and I've been through 163 buyouts before I left the commission. There is no other project that will protect our community. We went through flood walls. We went through retention. Retention alone, 500,000 cubic feet of storage. That would encompass 169 square miles. It'll take 1.5 feet off at the Fargo gauge. At the end of the day, this has to get done. And if you elect people that are telling you it won't get done, it probably won't get done. And I ask, vote for somebody that will move this forward to get it done, even if it's not me. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Wimmer?
Yeah, I'm strongly in favor of the diversion. I'm strongly in favor of finishing up our inner city flood control tasks that are roughly 45 to 50% complete now. So we're in the middle of that, and that's going very, very nicely. Scott, Dr. Mahoney, and myself were some of the original Diversion Authority members. And that Diversion Authority is, I think, still very, very dedicated to finishing the diversion. And listening to their meeting the other night on the special assessment, I kind of tapped everybody on the shoulder and said, are you recommitted? I mean, they got yelled at, screamed at, hollered at, taunted, and they all were. They all were. So it's amazing. And I think that commitment is because we know that we're working for the better good of roughly 200,000 people in the region. And we're not working for just Fargo. It's a Cass County project and beyond that. So it's really going to be a good project. Are we going to hold up on $1.8 billion? I don't know. That's out there. We hope there's enough buffer in, and this project will change 10 times before it's done. And our hope is we can get a shovel in the ground very, very quickly. I'm going to defer to Brad. He's the one I'll call on this global warming and on that in the future. And again, the farmers north and south, I've been in their backyards. I've been at their meetings, and I don't necessarily enjoy it, but it's something we just have to do from the Fargo side. We've got to reach out to the farm community north and south of us, into Richland, Wilkin, Cass, and talk to these people. We've got to work with them. We've got to mitigate with them, and we'll continue to do those efforts. And again, it's not easy because they will put their finger in your chest. They will be mad, but at the end of the day or the end of the 3-hour meeting, they'll come up and thank you for showing up.
Thank you. Tim Mahoney?
I'm going to talk fast because there's a lot of data to give you. Fargo-Moorhead is the center economic of this area. The diversion study was started after 2009. When they started the diversion study, most of their stuff they've done is figuring out, is it true, is it going to happen, what's happening around here. The hydraulics we have gathered from the floods of 2009 have accelerated our find. So initially, yes, Cole, we were going to put all the water downstream. We found we can't put more than 1 inch of water downstream. So when we first mitigated that, it was 4,900 structures that would have been affected. That's why we're storing upstream. So that's how the Corps does a study. The Corps has done a design study. We have spent over $100 million on this, and if you ask somebody what's going on, we studied it. We live on a flat plain. We're on a lake bed. So we don't have the advantage Grand Forks has that you can just put dikes up. We can build our best dikes around our city. We don't have any high land to tie into. So the only thing that makes us protected for a 500-year event is the diversion. We can put our levees in the town, come up to 100-year floodplain protection, take 2,000 homes out of that protection. If we don't do the diversion, 20,000 homes go into the floodplain. Tell me how Fargo is going to grow with 20,000 homes in the floodplain. Again, the third part of the element is climatology we've studied. I've listened to a variety of people come before us. I'd love to say this isn't going to happen. River Drive, I used to live there. I took all my neighborhoods out. We took all those homes out. We've taken out 300 homes, people that lived in their homes. The thing about the climatology is it's coming, and we have to prepare for it. When we go on the FEMA level up the next 500 years, the earliest they could do that is in 5 years, unless we start building. So yes, Tony, we want to start building right away because we can save money. The budget of $1.8 billion was put with a 30% contingency in it, that they knew inflation would happen, construction costs would happen, those things would happen. We flipped it. We said, let's do a private-public partnership. We can cut the cost by $400 million. We're going to Congress for that. We're going to congressional delegation. There's one last thing I got to tell you about farmers. We are going to pay them for the ability to store water on their land 1 in 10 years. We're going to pay them money for that. We're going to give them crop insurance. We have farmers on the committee doing that. We want to do everything we can do for the upstream people. Thank you.
Thank you. John Strand?
In December of 1996, I bought a business in Grand Forks with a partner. By April of 1997, our business was gone. Our building was gone, up in flames, and we had no employees, we had no customers, we had no nothing. We had no town from a catastrophic incident of a flood. So there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we all need to get on the same page, and we all need to advocate for comprehensive metro area flood protection. We have no choice but to champion this issue. And if we don't, we're remiss, and we're doing our future generations a misfortune. And it'd be unfortunate for us to do that. So am I for the flood diversion? Yes, of course. How can you not be for flood protection? Do I understand flood climatology models? Here's what I know. We're in a dry cycle now, but we still have to prepare for the incidence of a 500-year flood like Minot had not long ago. We saw that. We have no choice but to be prepared for this. So what's our issue? Where do we go from here? How do we get going forward? Here's what I've done in the last few weeks. I've heard everything, so I didn't know what, like on the farm, separating the wheat from the chaff. I called our congressional delegations in Minnesota and North Dakota. What did I find out? I found out we had a problem. We have $800 million of federal money in limbo because we're sitting here not talking with one voice. We're not unified in our messaging. We're even fighting with each other about how the assessment is. No, I don't like how the assessment came down. But you have to vote for it. I'm voting for it on the school board. I know there's concerns with bad PR and the statute that requires a vote the way it is. But I'm voting for it. I'm voting for it with my own property. I'm going to dedicate my energies as a city commissioner. It's not always, making the right decision or the wrong decision. It's making decisions right.
Thank you. I don't know whether this will cool things down or not. We'll start with Cole Carley on this one. Do you agree with the perception that Fargo does not work well with our neighbors in the state legislature, and how would you change that if you do?
With our, just before we start,
Our neighbors in the state legislature. And I assume they mean our fellow, the West Fargo, other communities, Moorhead.
Okay. Well, I think part of that depends on having legislators who are willing to work with us. And I'm not sure that we've had that opportunity over the last quite a few years. I've worked I worked legislative sessions for 10 sessions, excuse me, and it got pretty frustrating. We did everything as professionally as we could, but it seems like a lot of times when they get out there, things change, and not necessarily for the better. I think that Fargo has worked pretty nicely with our neighbors. For a couple of years, we were pretty independent, but I think this last session we worked very nicely with our neighboring communities here, with the legislators, and I think we can always do a little bit better. But we also have to. I think that the organizations here, the school district, the park district, and the city, and the county, also have to get together and let our legislators know what we expect, which is, I think, something that I'm not sure if that's gone on or not, but I think that we have to speak quite firmly with our own legislators, tell them what we expect for our area, and then work closely with the Wahpetons and the Grand Forks and the West Fargos for the betterment of eastern North Dakota, but also to encourage our neighbors to in the western part of North Dakota and let them know that we're on their side also. I think we need to be perceived as one state, and I've always been in favor of that.
Thank you. Brad Schaefer?
I think the fact that you asked a question, therein lies the answer. I would say yes, there's a problem. I travel a lot in North Dakota with my job. I know the mayor of Watford City pretty well. I know a few state legislatures pretty well. The term imperialist Fargo comes up quite often. Very proud to live in Fargo, but we've got a perception problem. that we think everybody ought to bow down to us. And a lot doesn't get done that way when we do it that way. I mean, John it made a very good point. We need to all start rowing in the same direction. And we've got several lawsuits filed against the Diversion Authority right now from our neighboring state. We're putting a dam on the Red River. Minnesota has to be involved in that. And we look at it as a regional flood protection issue. They don't look at it that way. And I've been told that. They look at it as a Fargo issue. And they're not doing well with others. So I think we need to have someone here who doesn't go to a legislature and necessarily tell them what Fargo wants, but work with them, ask what they want, and try to resolve something. I think Ronald Reagan was very good at that. He would find people that did not agree with him, and he would bring them into his camp and try to understand what their needs were and try to work something out with that. I honestly don't see a lot of that with Fargo. I think we're viewed as the bullies. We're going to get our way no matter what, and I think we ought to start working with people a little better if something is going to be resolved with this. Scott's right. You know, we can elect someone up here that says absolutely not, this diversion is not going to work, or you can ask questions, ask for clarity. This assessment issue was all about clarity. There was no clarity whether we were getting an assessment, we're co-signing a loan, was it certified, not certified? I was at 2 of those 4 public hearings, and there was not a lot of trust between the people putting on the hearings and the public.
Thank you. Tony Gehrig?
I think it's getting better. This is an opportunity for me to say that the current commissioners are doing a better job of doing that. They're reaching out a lot more. They're making a conscious effort. I mean, we all kind of know that that's how people think about us. You know, growing up here, Imperial Fargo is not a new term. So we're doing things to reach out, and I'll speak more regionally, I guess. We're doing things like talking about water with West Fargo. That's a great idea. Another good idea from the commissioners. I like that. It's mutually beneficial for us, and it saves money, which, you know, I like. The police department's working to lower gang crime, for example. We have a couple officers here in Fargo, and then the other 2 cities are offering officers as well to work together to reduce those problems. So there are certainly things that we can do. We need to continue to find ways to work together. And like I said before, I think it's getting better.
Thank you. Scott Wagner?
Thank you. You know, the 2 components, how we view each other as a greater metro area. Having been a county commissioner, I mean, I took a 30,000-foot view. When I was elected, you're elected countywide. I was held accountable. People lived in West Fargo, a rural area. But during my time on the board, the things that we did a lot of things right. And, you know, sometimes we talk about, well, the criticisms, and there are things you can do better, but look at the things that we're doing right. For instance, when I got on the county commission, we had 5 dispatch centers. I was proud to vote for 1 consolidated joint dispatch center. We didn't need 5. That's better enhanced service to our citizens, helping to lower costs. Emergency management's co-located. I supported that. Economic development. The Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. When I got on the board, it was the Fargo-Cass Economic Development Corporation, and Moorhead was struggling around 2005 to how would they move forward. And we said, you know, we're a metro area. We ought to be working together. So I think there are a lot of areas we work together well, and I think the diversion is pulling. You know, like a family, you do everything in public. You're gonna agree, you're gonna disagree, but at the end of the day, you come together. Legislative stuff. Nobody spent more time in Bismarck than I have in over a decade in leadership roles with the Association of County, chairing their legislative committee, working on behalf of all the local government. And when I got done with the county commission, I don't like to talk about awards, but it was selected as the County Commissioner of the Year in 2009. And I didn't look at that award about Scott Wagner, I looked at it about the team. In 2007, we had a strong push to keep local revenue authority in place. And I'm not going to get into the technical components of it, but that allowed us to be able to fight floods, that we had that revenue capacity. And some of the things said by some of my fellow county commissioners across the state, that I looked out for the needs of small and large counties alike. We've got to do that. We've got to be there for everybody and a voice for large and small communities across our state.
Thank you. Brad Wimmer?
Well, again, this is an important issue. I've been hanging my hat on being a member while on the commission of the North Dakota League of Cities. And again, I think one thing that's done is bring Williston, Bismarck, Minot, Grafton, Grand Forks, all of those communities. I've got good friends that are on the commission, that are either the mayor, that might be the city administrator, all of those areas. So you start to create relationships with the East and the West. I think that's absolutely critical, and again, we'll continue to do that. One of the tough things with the legislature, I think, has been as city people, we're very nonpartisan. It's a nonpartisan role. The state is extremely partisan. That creates a little bit of ill will at times, meshing those two together. So we go in as a very nonpartisan. We're working for the city of Fargo. Grafton's working for Grafton. Grand Forks working for Grand Forks. And they get into the state situation. Whole different level. I like the city level. The county level I haven't been as involved in. I've been to Bismarck many, many times, and it's a different animal in Bismarck. But it's critical that we work especially with our local legislators. Our neighbors, I think we need a better job with Moorhead, with West Fargo, with Dilworth, and then I think we need to branch that out. And again, I like getting out to those communities. We need to meet them in their kitchen, in their backyard. They don't need to always come to Fargo. And we need to reach out. And again, as I get to those meetings throughout the county and throughout the region, they love it when you come out. And they like to see Fargo. They like to see commissioners. They like to see department heads. They like to see the face of Fargo out and about. And I will continue to develop those relationships.
Thank you. Tim Mahoney?
I'm going to ask a simple question. A yield sign for the members of the audience. What color is a yield sign? Yellow and black? How many would say yellow and black? Raise your hand, please. How many would say red and white? They've been red and white for 10 years. So imperial class is a thing we get labeled with, and what you have to do is you have to break that, just like yield signs. So what we made is an effort when Denny died, we made a huge effort to go out with legislative people. I do know the mayor of Watford City. We do know the mayors out in Williston. You know what we said to them? You guys got infrastructure issues, don't you? You need infrastructure taken care of. You need the surge funding, don't you? They said, yeah, we really need all that stuff, Tim. We said, we support it. We're behind you. We're all the way. Whatever we can do to help you out, that's what we will do. So as a city of Fargo, we tried to cast off that reputation of being imperial class. And in fact, we went out with the chamber and had a nice discussion with the majority leaders, the minority leaders, the governor of the state, and they like Fargo. Why do they like Fargo? Because they're worried about the oils going down and they need some economic engine in the state, and they like us. So we're working together with any entity throughout the state. I worked very hard with the legislative people. I went in the Republican caucus, I went in the Democratic caucus, I went wherever I could go to meet people and work with them on their terms. And we've had good results. I think all of you complimented us this year. We've done very well with legislative issues. We went to the Senate, got a 46-0 vote on the diversion. They supported the diversion. We're going to probably get another $120 million to help us with in-town flood protection. They understand that. So we have had everything that we have had before them. They have listened to us, they have taken thoughtful pause about it, and they've tried to support us. The one issue we have, we're a big urban center, so we're growing so fast, nobody understands it. Our growth in taxable value last year went up 10%. That is $1 billion. So, wow, we got something going on. It's hard for the smaller cities when you say, this is what's going on, I got to design a budget to meet it. So I think we're doing a good job, and I think we'll continue to do that. Locally, the mayors and I get together all the time. I'd only say one thing. It's usually in a bar with two of the mayors.
John Strand.
Top that.
There's something I need to let you know. I'm gonna unleash a secret weapon on this topic, and that's based in the knowledge, personally and otherwise, that the folks in Fargo are from all those little towns out there. Their hometowns are so integrally connected to us through them that we don't have a separation between us and them. And our best way to bridge us and them is through all of us who are from out there, everywhere out there, those little towns. This is so important to understand. We don't have a lot of indigenous Fargoans anymore. We have people from everywhere, from all those little towns. And they're us. So, you know, one of the things, the good thing, and Brad alluded to it, this is a nonpartisan race. One thing I'm kind of good at is working across the aisle. I'm this fiscal conservative guy because I almost didn't survive once financially, so I came out of it and I learned to stretch every nickel every way I could. But on the other hand, I'm way over here for human rights activism and advocacy. I think a lot of people are there where they want the dollars honored and respected, and they want people to be honored and respected. So what that means is we need to be able to reach across the aisle and talk to everybody and connect on a human level and heart to heart, mind to mind, and work together for a greater common good and share a vision that's for the greater common good. And for us, that greater common good, it isn't just Fargo. It's the hometowns of all these people here that are in Fargo, where they're from. Their roots and the success of their little hometowns is so important for the greater good of North Dakota.
Thank you. Mara Brust.
We've all heard the stereotype of imperial caste, and even if it's not warranted, that's something we need to be cognizant of and make sure that we're proving that that's not true, that we're working well with others and helping out our neighbors. I run a statewide organization that's dedicated to getting young people more involved in the political process, so I know many of our state legislators and have great relationships with them, so I'd be eager to look for opportunities for collaboration. I think the diversion is a great example of what can be done when Fargo asks the state for help and works with others and they see the needs that we have. As to our immediate neighbors, I think it's really important that we have a good relationship with the cities that are surrounding us, that we're good neighbors. We need to embrace every opportunity that we have for collaboration with them, because what's good for one city is good for all of us. I mean, how many of us live in one city, work in another, shop in a third? We need to make sure that we're all working together to make this area thrive as a whole. And as for working with others, I'm an attorney, and most cases don't go to court. Most of them settle out of court because attorneys are trained to look for common ground, to find creative solutions that appease everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. The clock on the wall tells me that we are running low on time, so we have to go to closing statements now, though I mean, I've got a stack this big.
We're so disappointed.
On global warming.
I would encourage all of you who didn't get your question asked, please talk to the candidates afterwards, send them an email through their campaign websites, their campaign Facebook pages, which I have seen. So there are ways to contact them, and for anybody watching on television when this appears around and around on public access, do the same. And so we will start with Brad Schaefer to begin 2-minute closing statements.
Well, I love this process. It's good to beat ourselves up a little bit every now and then, learn about ourselves, learn about our city. It's even good to get beat up personally every now and then, and we learn from that, and we get up and we move on. One of these two guys down here is going to be a mayor in a week and a half, and one of us 6 is going to be a commissioner sitting up here. And I just enjoy the dialogue. I think it's been very open, and I've learned a lot. And I think we need to learn that just having something one person's way or one city's way or even one state's way is not the way that problems are going to be resolved. Is we have to sit down, have open dialogue, and I see that tonight as we've talked about things, is we have to get all going in the same direction. The diversion is such a huge issue. We need flood protection in Fargo. How does that end up? It ends up with people, Scott, yes, agreeing that, hey, this is the overall good, and everybody's going to have to compromise somewhat. How do we do that? We need to get people involved. Not everybody's going to get their way. Some of the farmers are going to be frustrated. Some are going to be happy. Some homes are going to get bought out, and some won't. And so I think that having open dialogue as we go forward and being willing to compromise, being able to understand that, look at the greater good on how we solve things is a bigger part of this. And I'm impressed with the 8 people up here, to be honest with you, and it's been a good learning experience. And April 28th, you guys, if you want to know how to vote, you can go to our websites. It's a general election over town. You don't have to vote where you normally vote. And I'd like to see a lot of people out there. Very important election. 2 of the 5 commission seats are being voted on. it's a great place to live. I love living in Fargo, and I think it's got a great upside, great growth in this city. So thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Tony Gehrig?
Needs versus wants. I'm the lone voice on a lot of issues, and you wonder why I'm the lone voice. It's because it's hard to ask hard questions. You get a lot of pushback. I've taken a beating in the papers. When I said that this city hall was going to be $25 million instead of 12, they all called me a liar, and they tried to defame me. You know, when I talk to and point out the issues with diversion, I never said I was against it. I said, in theory, I'm actually for it. But when you point out the issues with it, you get a vitriol response from a lot of the other candidates and a lot of people that think you're obviously against it. Well, I'm just asking the hard questions, trying to be honest with you about what the process is. You know, I believe that having a functional city hall that looks nice and does its job, and also having a fire department in South Fargo is more important than having a $30 million plus city hall in a floodplain in downtown Fargo. I take a beating for that a lot of times. I believe that if we can find a more responsible choice for a city-owned convention center, like a P3 option, we can have more police officers, and we can have a new landfill, and we can have a new pump at the sewer plant, which are all core responsibilities of local government. So I have been the lone voice on these issues, and it's hard to do that. And I hope people appreciate the conversation, and I hope that it's always respectful, and I hope people understand why I'm doing it. It's not because I hate, you know, paying my taxes every day. I just see a more responsible option that will grow our city even faster. We can lower taxes if we can do it more responsibly, and that makes Fargo a better place, a more affordable place, a place that people want to come to. So please look at the issues that I'm talking about. I've written many op-eds. I have videos on my website. There are short clips. You can get the facts on these issues, and you can always call me. I'm the most transparent candidate. If you grab a flyer, my cell phone number is on there. I'm the only candidate that does that. If you email me at tonygehrig@gmail, I answer those emails myself personally. No one else does that. So call me, question me, and I look forward to the conversation, and please vote.
Thank you. Scott Wagner?
Thank you. Well, once again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I've been through a number of these over the years, and I've always appreciated them. So, and also to the people that were here tonight. I used to get into an argument with the county auditor, Mike Montplaisir, who I have immense amount of respect for. He runs elections, and so when we talk about turnout, I said, oh, it's going to be bigger, it's going to be bigger. And Mike always tells me, nope, this is kind of where it's going to be, and I've always been wrong. So I would hope in this election that we have a good turnout. I really hope so. And the fact that because traditionally it's a lower turnout, I think 18–19% in the primary this last year, and the fact that you people are here, sitting here, your commitment to this process, whoever you're supporting, I think that's great. This is a critical time in our city's history. It's a great time, but there are a lot of big issues. And what I'd like to offer you is the things that I've talked about over the last hour and a half, and that's experience working on these big major issues: flood control, infrastructure, public safety. You know, as the only commission candidate that has actually set public safety and law enforcement budgets, I understand the issues facing our community. I spent 12 years in primary sector economic development, and I run a small service business. I get up every day and work and drive the streets of our city. And so I would appreciate your vote on April 28th, and thanks again to the League of Women Voters and for you being here tonight.
Thank you. Brad Wimmer?
Did we reverse roles on the close as opposed to the opening?
No.
No, I just started at the next person because there were some people at the end who had not started first. So it's just,
This isn't like our other debates.
yeah.
Normally,
one of eight.
Normally I
You're-
open and he
Well,
goes second, and then he closes, and then the other goes
You've
second.
been one of 8. Don't worry about it too much.
Okay. I'm talking a lot about being invested, involved, and engaged. And I think that's critically important for the city of Fargo as we move forward. You know, I think there's, again, a people person. It's interesting tonight, Scott, Tim, and I have probably known each other, and Cole, a while. And I think I've gotten to meet Brad, I've gotten to meet Tony, I've gotten to meet Mara. John I've known also in the past. So half of the group I've known, half of the group I haven't, and it's been a pleasure to sit down and have coffee with them all, to meet them, to find out what their needs are and what they're looking for, to help them along also if they've got any questions of an 8-year commissioner. And I think that's important, to become invested in people. And that's what I'll be about. Again, I mentioned I'm going to connect dots around the city, around the region with our neighbors, and around the state. So that's going to be critically important. Public safety is going to be near the top of the list, along with the water projects, along with workforce development. Housing is going to be big. There's going to be a lot of things in the city to coordinate. I've transitioned our business. I've transitioned myself. I've transitioned the workload. Again, Dennis treated this basically as a full-time job, and I'm going to do the same. The transition skills are going to be critical as we have a new city administrator, as we have a new police chief. We're going to have other areas of the city that are going to transition quickly. Going to be new players, as Bradford said. We've got 2 new commissioners, and that's going to change in a year and a half. We're going to have 1 or 2 new commissioners again in a year and a half. So it's critical we work together. It's critical we set a vision, and it's critical we stay out ahead of things. The water projects are going to be crucial as we move forward, and I hope that you'll elect me and trust me and feel that we have those leadership skills.
Thank you. Tim Mahoney.
Thank you very much. I'm wearing a button tonight that says Mahoney for mayor. It's actually my father's. He was the mayor of Devil's Lake at one time. And he and I are both physicians and understand many of the intricacies of that, of talking to people about many things that are important to them. Sometimes life and death decisions, sometimes other types of decisions. I've walked that path, I've gone down that path, had difficult decisions and difficult discussions with people. When you look at, we had discussions and he said, but Tim, what are you going to give back to the community? They've blessed you and benefited you by coming to you as a physician, but what are you going to give back to them? And I struggled with that for a long time in my life, but I finally found a spot to land, which was Fargo, and ran for city commission. And I've been honored to serve the people of Fargo. What you'll get from me is my heart is in it. I'll give you all I got. I'll work hard for you. You've seen me in times of crisis and floods. I'll keep a level head. I know some of those tough decisions. I've had training and education that will help me with some of those things. I work well with people. The role I've had since Denny died, he had a pretty good course. Milken Institute ranked us #1 as a city of how we run our economics. Our bond rating is second to 1. If we have Bill Bonds, our guy that's head of Microsoft, move into town, we'd have a higher ranking, but we don't have enough rich people living in town. But beyond that, we're the top bond rating we get. Tony, I disagree with you. The tax rate on property taxes in the last 10 years has gone down 37%. We have dropped our mill levy from 58 to 51. Taxable value has gone up $1 billion. There's no city in the state that has this type of growth. So we've got the city running pretty good. We've got excellent department heads. We've got an excellent manager. I think all of us can say we pretty much like the way the city runs. But now comes the second part. How are we going to define ourselves? And how we define ourselves are our citizens and our community. And where we go from here is up to our people. That's what I'd like to represent. Thank you.
Thank you. John Strand.
Tim Mahoney and I have something in common that you may not know. And my mom was mayor of my hometown, and she ran it like a family. She spruced up the town. She cleaned up the town. She got the ditches mowed. She got the dirty buildings, rotten buildings torn down. She had the parks mowed. She had picnics. She had everybody getting along like a family, and going forward like a family. Even though you have moments you're not all in agreement, you go forward as a family. What I know about people is if you have a gleam in your eye, you're a wealthy human being. And if you're and we have that going for us. We're so fortunate here compared to people all over the planet, people all over the country. Our problems are manageable, and we can celebrate that we're operating out of a place of abundance. We're so fortunate and so blessed, and we have so much opportunity to embrace each other. And if we're going down the path and street of life and we run into somebody that isn't quite at the top of their game or doesn't have that gleam in their eye, let's stop and connect for a moment and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you all right? Is there any way we can help you? I hope you choose somebody for your city commissioner that has a skill set. Of course, I'm a businessman my whole life. Of course, you know me as a school board member. You know I honor preservation and history and neighborhoods. You know all that. And I know how to work with big budgets. You know that. But I hope you also will look and think about who's going to care most about you, and vote for that person when you go to the ballot box as well.
Thank you. Mara Brust.
I would bring to the Fargo City Commission a unique perspective on what it takes to build a community that will retain and attract talent. As I've mentioned, millennials make up the largest percentage of the workforce. They look for affordable housing near work and amenities, low-cost transit with multiple options for getting around the city, cultural attractions and entertainment options, and a thriving tech and startup community. These are all things I'm intimately, personally familiar with. As a fourth-generation Fargoan, I value neighborhood identity. I grew up in the Longfellow neighborhood. I live in the Hawthorne neighborhood, so I understand the need to keep our older neighborhoods thriving and vibrant. I also think that as we grow to the south, we should use this opportunity to build new vibrant neighborhoods with mixed-use areas, bike lanes, and parks. As a fourth-generation North Dakota or Fargoan, I also understand my grandparents' desire to age in place in their homes, as well as my parents' desire to downsize and live near amenities and services as they became empty nesters. I've mentioned before that baby boomers and millennials are currently the largest portion of our population, and they're looking for similar things right now. If you need any more proof of that, when I first moved back here, I was looking for a condo, and my parents were looking to downsize, and we picked the same condo building. I was really both humbled and encouraged by the outpouring support I received during my last campaign. I learned so much about Fargo, and my love for our city only grew. I believe that this is a pivotal moment in Fargo's history, and I want to steer us into the future. I believe that our local government deserves a fresh perspective and a new voice. As extraordinary as Fargo is, I want us to reach our full potential, and I know that with my work ethic, intelligence, and creativity, I could make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Cole Carley.
Thanks for coming out tonight, and thanks again to the League of Women Voters. I love this city. I am passionate about its success. When I worked at the Convention Visitors Bureau, we served 2 cities in 2 counties, in 2 states, in 2 federal districts. So we knew what the word teamwork meant. We also knew what the word politics meant, because we got along very well with the 2 totally dissimilar city governments, with 2 totally dissimilar state governments. And we honed our skills of relationship building and communications. The reason I bring this up is this is 1 vote out of 5. 1 vote out of 5 on the City Commission. And communications, relationship building are going to be very important skills to working with the other 4 city commissioners. And I got to hone those skills very well when I was at the Convention Visitors Bureau. Also, imagination and leadership are going to be very important. I know Fargo city government very well because I got to know it over the years when I was with the Convention Visitors Bureau. And Fargo city government has had a kind of a tough year this last year. Several events that they could not have foreseen have really kind of slapped them upside the head. And they've been working with 4 commissioners instead of 5. I just want to help. I have no political agenda. I have no political party affiliation. I just want to get in and help. To do that, I need your help. So, on April 28th, I'd appreciate it if you'd vote for me for Fargo City Commission. I promise to serve you well, and all ideas are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you again to everyone in our audience, to the City of Fargo and its staff for its help, to all the League volunteers that have helped, and as always, please join me in thanking our candidates.